Mr. President, I'm delighted to join our senator from Maine, or our two senators from Maine, Senator Collins and Senator Angus King, in this dialogue, as well as Senator Klobuchar, and I believe a few other senators may join us. Senator Collins has been a great leader in advancing the debate or the conversation recognizing the carbon benefits of biomass. Her state, and of course Senator King's state, is so much like Oregon. If you fold the map of the United States in the middle, put east and west on top of each other, Oregon and Maine end up closely associated. We have similar coastlines, and we have shellfish industries, we have timber industries, we have salmon runs, we have similar initiative systems, and our largest cities are named Portland. I know that when I had the pleasure to visit Maine, and I went there with my wife and children to visit friends from many walks of our two lives, my wife's life and my life. We just went from town to town visiting these friends who had moved to Maine, and we'd pick up a newspaper and we felt like we were right at home in Oregon with actually the same initiatives were being done at that time in the state as we had on the front page back home. And this issue of biomass is close to our hearts in the forests of the Northeast and the forests of the Northwest. When I first came to the Senate and the conversation was going forward about renewable energy, Senator Dorgan from North Dakota, now retired, said that his home state was the Saudi Arabia of wind energy. And then Senator Reed from Nevada, I heard him say that Nevada is the Saudi Arabia of solar power. And then there was a county commissioner from Douglas County, the county that I was born in, which is the largest concentration of Douglas fir trees. It's enormous biomass area, if you will, referred to how Douglas County could be the Saudi Arabia of biomass energy. And I thought, with all these Saudi Arabias here in the United States, why are we still importing oil from Saudi Arabia? But indeed, these efforts to develop an alternative, to pivot from fossil fuels to a clean energy economy, should include solar and should include wind and should include biomass. When I came to the Senate, I undertook the project of helping the Environmental Protection Agency recognize that you have to look at the life cycle, that you can't simply look at the moment of combustion. You can't compare coal being burned in a coal furnace or oil in an oil furnace and say that's equivalent to wood being burned in a biomass furnace, because indeed, as you take that biomass, that wood, you are engaged in a life cycle that doesn't involve bringing more carbon out of the earth and adding it to the cycle in the ground. And our colleague Angus King from Maine was referring to that difference earlier in his comments. Anyway, it's been an effort to make sure that our government takes account of this significant contribution of forest biomass. And in the Northwest, biomass is the potential for a win-win as a renewable source and improving forest health. And Senator Collins was referring to the goals of responsible forest management and conservation. And indeed, if you drive along the roads in our national forests in my home state, you will see slash piles. And these piles are there because as we go through for forest health, we thin the trees. If they're good saw logs, we take them off to the mill, but the debris remain and we put it into piles. And then the goal is to remove those piles. But often, there is no economical way to remove those piles, and then you have to burn them in the forest. Just a couple months ago, I was out in a forest in southern Oregon with a torch, lighting fire to these piles, and the situation is often such that in this case it was an area where there's often a temperature inversion, and you get smog from the smoke, and so they can only be burned a couple days a year, so it's a big challenge. But isn't it so much better to be able to take those piles of biomass and put them to work, instead of burning them in the forest, burn them in a situation that produces heat and electricity? That is a win-win outcome. So when you hear people in the Northwest talk about forest biomass, there's a lot of excitement about how to grow this market. A market as a means of improving the health of our forests while providing a renewable source of energy. On private lands, a growing domestic biomass market also has the potential to create a new value stream for our forest landowners. By adding another value stream for forest landowners, biomass can create incentives to keep forest land as forest and avoid conversion to a non-forest use. The modification made to Senator Collins' amendment reflects this dynamic, that one of the contributions to emissions in the forest sector is actually the conversion of forest land to non-forest use, because the trees are no longer there to sequester carbon. So if we can help prevent this, that is a beneficial side effect of this overall effort on biomass, to amplify the role of forests, not to remove them. The most important example of that has been brought up as a concern that doesn't fit this model of conservation or burning the byproducts is whether entire forests might be ground up. It is and used to create pellets or so forth. I believe, and I certainly will be corrected if I'm wrong, that that certainly is not the framework in which this amendment is crafted, with a dedication to enhancing the health of our forests and energy and forest conservation. I think this amendment sends a clear signal to EPA that in many cases forest biomass is carbon neutral, should be treated as such. It reinforces a conversation we've been having since I came here over the last 7 years and earlier with Senator Collins' hard work. When EPA takes regulatory action, it should reflect these opportunities where biomass is carbon neutral. In fact, policies like clean power plants should provide an incentive for forest biomass that is carbon neutral. And I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues on this topic, because this is a very significant win-win opportunity for energy, for the environment, and those are the type of opportunities we should seize. Thank you.